Well, I'm with Jeff Fahey, great actor from Guns of Redemption. I don't think I've ever asked you that. Again, hello. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Good, good. How you doing? Good to see
I'm just so
you.
excited because in the past interviews that we've done, I've never asked you about how passionate you are about the Western genre. I know Casper and Brian, they're huge fans. Wondering about your fandom regarding Westerns. Did it start when you were a youth, or did it evolve as you started making Westerns yourself?
Oh, always loved Westerns. Always going back to when I was very young. I mean, just Westerns. I mean, I always loved film, but Westerns, I've never seen a bad Western. There might be people who don't like certain Westerns, but I've never seen a bad one. I mean, there are ones that are better than others, but for me, just the fantasy of it and I'm always been fascinated about that world, that time, and and then simply from an audience perspective, I've just always been entertained by the visuals and that time in history and yeah, huge John Wayne fan and Robert
Of course.
Mitchum and Gary Cooper, all the cats through all those westerns, and the wonderful thing is years later getting to work with and meet people that I was big fans of, and ended up working with Clint Eastwood, and then ended up working with Robert Mitchum, and these were these cats that I just loved the westerns that I grew up on. Yeah.
And
So, in answer to your question, then to end up in Silverado and then have, I don't know how many Westerns it is now that I've been in, maybe seven or eight, I think. But it's just, yeah. And answer your question, always loved him, always will.
And I'm sure doing something going before we get to the guns, doing something like I Clanton and researching it and actually pulling off the
Yeah.
OK Corral in a very historically accurate way. What is
Mm.
that? Was that really cool the day of that shoot? And because you're a fan, and then you also did so much research. I'm assuming for the part and that
Hmm.
whole area.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, it was. And what I loved about that was that, Larry, I mean, the exact amount of bullets that we shot in that scene were the amount that the exact dimensions of that alleyway right there leading into the corral was historically accurate. And the only thing that, as far as my character, is if you remember, I'm standing holding my left arm. And as we're rehearsing the scene just before we shot, when we're blocking it out, Larry Kasdan comes up to me and says, he goes, Jeff, you're going to stand like that? And I said, yeah, Larry, I'm doing something. I'll tell you afterwards because it was a great working relationship. He said, "Oh, okay." So we did shot the scene, and I'm standing there like that. And then afterwards, he said, "What is that, Jeff?" I said, "Well, if you remember one of the last shots in The Searchers, John Wayne's standing. He comes up to the door, and he stands like that." And what I had found out that through a little research, John Wayne stood like that because Harry Carey Sr., who he was very close with, had passed away, just passed away, and Harry used to stand like that. Harry Carey used to stand like that. So that was his tribute in the John Ford film Searchers. That was his little nod to Harry Carey Sr., and that was my nod to John Wayne's nod to Harry Carey. So
that
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
that is amazing. So something like Guns of Redemption, which you and I we've seen so many westerns, but I don't see many westerns where it's about the protagonist is a man who's struggling with his faith. The antagonist is a person who's lost his way. Were these themes one of the reasons why this was a very appealing subject for you, not just as a western, but as a storyline?
Well, yeah, yeah. That certainly was um, part of the big picture of why I wanted to do this. First of all, because of this very conversation, because it is a Western. I was immediately attracted to it. But I love the idea that that your hero, Casper's character, was somebody who was uh, quite dark and with the things that had gone on during the Civil War, and that my character was on the winning side, if you will, and that he became this dark character. And while one is in a place of redemption, if you will,
Please help
the
us.
other one is going
I
deeper in
believe you're
darkness
hiding a couple
and
prisoners
really
tonight.
taking advantage
Hang it
of
up, boys. I've had enough of
the
this.
spoils of a war.
You're
And
still alive.
so, yeah, and answer your
What are you
question,
gonna
yeah,
do?
there's
Calm down.
a lot of nice
What the hell kind of a man comes
depth
back from the
to
dead to
what I
save a
felt
couple
was
of
there and
worthless
what
squaws?
Brian
Why
allowed
do
me
you
to
need to?
bring.
Jeff, in the last several
You
years,
a
since
preacher?
You looking to get
you're pretty much a
baptized?
student of the genre itself, what's it like in the last maybe 2.5 years working on something like Guns of Redemption, where back in the day, filmmakers like Samuel Fuller would make low budget, really compelling concerts, but then you're working again with Costner and
Nothing in this
Horizon,
church
where
that
he's
belongs
going
to
for
you
that,
other
how
than
that
the sin
West,
you brought in.
how the Western gone, John what is that energy like for you as an artist and a storyteller to work within a genre you love and with two different completely type of just paintings, right? So
Yeah, no, it was fascinating. It's a gift to be able to be invited into these films and have this experience. And I'm always talking about that very thing that you've just asked me, to be in to what's it like to be in the big films and in the smaller films. And they first of all, to work with Kevin again, I think that's our third time. Silverado, Wyatt, Earp, and Horizon. Yeah. And I mean, Kevin has evolved into this, I think, brilliant, brilliant director who, and and I do think that Horizon in time will be greatly appreciated in the sense that the audience will get used to taking their time and allowing a story to breathe. It's a long one, but eventually I think it's going to become a classic. And and then you have Guns, for example, that is fast paced and rock and rolls, and it's a smaller film, but it and both of them deliver for me. And I love the idea of having to be involved with one where it pops scene to scene, pop, pop,
yeah,
pop, and as in Guns. And then you have Horizon, where each scene has its time. It takes its time. It allows the audience to absorb it, to think about it. It also allows the characters to breathe and think within a frame rather than just deliver. And both are valid. And I do believe that for that very reason, Guns is going to be wonderfully entertaining and successful, and stand on its own in a wonderful way. So, long way around the barn to answer your question. I enjoyed working with Brian just as much as I enjoy working with Kevin Costner.
Jeff, on that point, earlier in your career, maybe 30 some years ago, you're working with guys like you said, Mitchum, Gene Hackman, Brian
Jane,
Dennehy.
Jane, yeah.
Yeah, and I still have I can't wait to see Split Decisions, by the way, and also love Collider.
No,
But
yeah.
coming up, were you asking them for advice? And what's it like now where the tables have turned, maybe sort of with something like Guns? It's great to see it, not just as a Western, but I get to see a lot of these younger actors come up. Do you become a mentor? Do they ask you these type of questions? What is that type of interplay like, and that full circle interplay, I guess?
Mm, great question, because it does happen. And I think more than one gets questions, but more than that, you realize that people are observing you as, and it reminds me of when I would be working with older actors like Mitchum, and I'm certainly not putting myself in the category of Mitchum and Eastwood, but older actors when I was working with them, and Ben Gazzara, Gene Hackman, and I would find myself, I would always become friends with them, but I would find myself constantly observing and and watching and absorbing uh, the the things they were doing that I dug, and the things I was trying to understand, and applying them, applying pace and rhythm and style, but yet making it your own. And and I find I was just working the other day, and you do something and learn a big scene in a very short moment of time, and deliver the goods, and then be appreciated by the younger actors going, hey, that was when you're just doing your jazz. But it reminds me of me being very impressed with the older actors I was working with. So it's a wonderful feeling. And then, yes, that there are conversations where you're able to share um, an idea with someone about craft, not necessarily performance, but about craft and technique and things that you use through the day and through the shoot to get over a little hump or absorb something. And yeah, I've just had, as I said, a conversation about that day before yesterday on the set. It's a wonderful feeling because it validates within yourself um, the things that are working that you learned from someone else, and you're able to pass it on if someone is open for it. And but I never push it on anybody. But God, I've just literally, and I'm right now down here in Muscle Shoals in the recording studios. We're doing some music. In case you can hear the music in the background in the studio. But I was just talking to one of the musicians about Robert Mitchum and the wonderful things I learned from him about pace, and the things I learned from James Coburn about breathing, and and from Eastwood about staying calm but delivering. It's just so many wonderful things. I've been blessed to work with so many wonderful people throughout my career.
Jeff, thank you for your time. A couple final questions. I gotta
Yes,
ask,
sir.
you're
Yes,
making
sir.
music, right now. Can you tell our listeners and watchers what is the context of making that music? And I've never been there, and is it a different type of energy? So
Oh yeah, and some of the best musicians in the world, these session musicians that I'm working with. So these guys work with Ray Charles. I mean, everybody, Willie Nelson. They've all worked with them all. But we're doing music for a couple other films, which we have two pieces of music in Guns. So I've been doing some music for. I'm not a musician. I'm a lyricist, but I have a team of two writing partners who are musicians, and we've been able to put music into the films, which you'll
um,
see in Guns. So
that
it's
is
very
very cool.
exciting.
So the
Yeah.
final question is sort of
Yes, sir.
almost an impossible two-parter. First part, I'm going to recommend Guns of Redemption. And then I'm going to recommend one of your other films, which I saw this morning, which I feel is absolutely underrated. I know you don't look at all your comments, but when I read all of the reviews for Body Parts, everyone was saying just a
Oh,
next level acting. People saying highly underrated. This is a gem of a movie. So I gave it a shot. I watched it. It is so underrated, and the visual compositions and the acting are all top tier. Can you just tell our listeners about that experience? And do you feel that it's underrated? And what joy did you get from making that movie? Because I think it's just so overlooked. So
mm. Well, I really enjoyed making the film very much, but I have to say that it's been almost 50 years in the business now from
yeah.
theater, and I I'm I'm at a place where if the audience grabs a hold of something that I am part of, it's wonderful. If they don't, I'm on to the next thing. I mean, I'm really truly living my life, not through my work, but rather my work is living through my life. So I it may be underappreciated, but I'll tell you, it's Robert Rodriguez. It's one of his favorite films. It's so many people like yourself and other people who are deep inside of film, really truly love that film and talk about it quite a bit. But what the audience grabs a hold of in time, or sometimes never, uh, that jazz can't. I just don't think about it that much, and it doesn't mean that I don't care, but I'm on to other things, and I just keep rolling down the road and doing my thing and working with great people. And it was such a joy to work with Brian Skiba and his group, and work with everyone involved in Guns of Redemption. Yeah,
Jeff, thank you so much for your time. But I think
thank you.
you're one of the most well-traveled people in the world that I've ever interviewed. What keeps you more passionate about moving on to the next thing and meeting so many different people. Whereas I think a lot of people say, well, I did this, I'm gonna just stay at home and never leave the house, but you're always on the go. What feeds that passion in you?
Um, well, I can't stay home because I don't have a home. So I'm always on the road. But uh, I think it's just again, I just feel so fortunate to be able to live the life I'm living, and I'm fascinated by the adventures. I'm fascinated by the adventures. Every job is a new adventure. The music thing is a new adventure, and I never leave one thing to go to the other. I just add more to my life, if you will, and I've and
Yeah.
there is luck involved. There's luck in because we don't get anything without the help of others. So I've met some wonderful people that have helped open some great doors in life. And I'm just walking through them and doing the best I can.
Guns of Redemption hits theaters and on demand March 7th. As always, Jeff Fahey, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. For more movie and television reviews and interviews, please subscribe to my Deepest Dream channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And as always, thanks so much for your support. Take care.